What were the achievements of the Air Force's major operation on March 1st against U.S. airbases in the region? Did the Iranian Su-24s finally reach Al-Udeid and bomb it, or were they shot down by the Qataris before reaching it? What information is available regarding the fate of the other 3 pilots? Will these operations convince our commanders to strengthen the Air Force? These are the topics we intend to cover in this video. Please stay with us until the end of this video. Greetings to all the dear audience of Kamin Media. If you are watching us and haven't followed us yet, please be sure to subscribe. Support our videos with your likes and comments, and grace us with your valuable feedback. Finally, after months of waiting, the blessed remains of one of the brave Su-24 bomber pilots of the Air Force, who participated in the attack on the Al-Udeid base in Qatar, have returned to our beloved country. Martyr Kazemi was laid to rest on Friday in the city of Shiraz. With the return of this dear one's remains, questions and speculations have arisen. What was the story behind this operation? What happened? How did it come about? Before I get into the discussion, I first wish health for the 3 other pilots whose fate is still unknown. We hope that those 3 noble men are in full health and that we witness the day they return to our beloved country and the arms of their families. However, regarding how this operation was carried out, there are 2 possibilities. Some say that the Su-24 bombers did not succeed in bombing at all and were shot down by the Qatari Air Force before reaching Qatar. The official narrative of the Islamic Republic of Iran Army is that no, the bombers did go and bomb Al-Udeid, and were on their way back when the Qataris shot them down. We assume that the official narrative of the Islamic Republic of Iran Army is the correct one and will speak based on that. Well, the home base for Su-24 bombers in our country is the Udeid Air Base, or the 7th Tactical Fighter Base in Shiraz. The Air Force of the Islamic Republic of Iran has 2 tactical fighter transport bases in the country. One is the 1st Shahid Lashkari base in Mehrabad, and the other is the 7th Udeid base in Shiraz. Other bases do not have fighter and transport roles simultaneously. Other bases are those where fighters are stationed, and transport aircraft are not stationed there in that sense, unless they perform day-to-day tasks for that base. The Udeid base, and in general this base established in Shiraz, is a very strategic base. Especially its proximity to the Strait of Hormuz and our country's southern coasts, as well as its short distance from our southwestern borders, have given it a strategic position that allows it to act as a parent base, supporting other bases and regions in the south, southwest, and to some extent, the southeast of the country. During the war, a number of F-14 aircraft from the 8th Shahid Babeh base in Isfahan were transferred here, and even before the revolution, the plan was for the purchased F-16s to be transferred to this base. Later, the IRGC took the location where the F-16s were supposed to go and built the Imam Khomeini Air Base, where Su-25s and later Su-22s were stationed. So, the location of the Udeid base in Shiraz is highly strategic. Su-24 aircraft entered the country in the early 90s. According to that famous contract Iran made with Gorbachev at the end of the Soviet era, which you have heard about many times and Mr. Nobari has fully described, the Su-24 aircraft were purchased and brought to this base. A number of Su-24 aircraft were also war trophies that sought refuge in our country from the Iraqi side during the Kuwait War, and they were also transferred to this base. The Su-24 is a strike bomber aircraft, meaning it doesn't fall into the category of heavy bombers like the Tupolev Tu-22 or Tu-160, or on the American side, like the B-52 or B-1. It belongs in the same class as the F-111, and the Soviets designed it by modeling it after the F-111. It is a relatively large aircraft with very good payload capacity, good electronic warfare capabilities, variable sweep wings, and it is a 2-seater with the crew sitting side by side. It was modeled after that same F-111, although its capabilities are a bit lower than the F-111. Now, I don't want to get into technical discussions. Given the very good capacity this aircraft has for carrying heavy weapons, it can carry a diverse range of armaments. A series of free-fall bombs and guided bombs, various missiles like the Kh-59, heavy rockets like the S-24 and S-25, anti-radiation missiles like the Kh-58, and even cruise missiles can be mounted on it. In Iran, the long-range Asaf cruise missile was designed for this aircraft and was apparently tested on it as well. So this aircraft has great offensive and weapons capability, and if its electronic warfare pods perform well, it also has good electronic warfare capabilities. Another very good capability this aircraft has is the buddy-to-buddy refueling ability. Meaning, a Su-24 can have a refueling pod attached under it and refuel another Su-24. This capability also existed in the Mirage aircraft. That is why this aircraft is also a suitable plane for deep strikes into enemy territory. Considering these capabilities that I have briefly described to you, what happened regarding Qatar and the type of operation that the brave Air Force pilot conducted against Udeid Base is almost similar to the operation that F-5 fighters conducted against the Aviation base or Camp Buehring in Kuwait.
This really encouraged me to put my life on the line. During the mission briefing, they said this is a no-return mission, meaning 2 Patriot systems, 2 Patriot battalions.
In military terms, the calculations indicated that interception, meaning there was no return, was certain.
2 F-5 aircraft were assigned for this operation. We were 2 aircraft.
1 twin-seater and 1 single-seater.
The single-seater was me, and he was my wingman in the back seat, in the Omran Highlands, which are at an altitude of 12,000 feet, we had to fly through the valleys. If we increased our altitude, the enemy's radar systems would have detected us. At low altitude, we actually had to fly below 100 feet. In some places, we even flew at 50 feet, and with God's help, we reached the forward base, and that center for their troop concentration in helicopters, which was specifically for their heliborne program, was targeted. We dove and released those bombs, which were also powerful bombs. I turned back for a moment. Yes, indeed, a scene of total chaos and destruction had broken out there. Yes, total chaos. Their helicopters were there, their equipment depots were there, and the hangars, which we later learned also contained their helicopters. I told the back-seater to look for a moment. We saw a massive volume of fire rising up, with a 60-year-old aircraft, with young pilots, with pilots from the 80s. This mission was carried out in the best possible way.
However, there are a few points to consider. First of all, the distance from Desful Base to Kuwait is much shorter than the distance from Shiraz to Udeid Base in Qatar. However, it seems the flight pattern was the same, meaning, the aircraft came in at a very low altitude, perhaps 100 feet or less, flying at high speed toward the target to stay hidden from the enemy's radar. I suspect that since they went, well, that's the Army's official account, and bombed and returned, they probably used free-fall Fab series bombs, those Russian free-fall bombs. Whether it was the Fab 100, Fab 250, or Fab 500, I don't know what type of bomb was loaded under these aircraft. They must have gone to bomb, and then on the way back, defensive radars picked them up, and as it's been said, Qatari F-15s took off to strike them down. So the point is that since they took off from Shiraz, they definitely flew at a very low altitude to reach the Udeid Air Base. However, when we examine this official and semi-official narrative, first of all, we must say that the 4 people who went and did this really deserve to be honored, because they truly made a choice where the probability of return was 99.9% non-existent. Meaning they knew they were going on a mission from which they might never return, whether they became martyrs or were captured. Their chance of return was essentially zero. One thing that really encouraged me to take this action was the revenge for the martyrs of Minab. I have 2 daughters myself, and the feeling of those girls came to my mind when 167 of our children were wiped out there. This really encouraged me to sacrifice my life. In the operation, they said this is a one-way mission with no return, meaning 2 Patriot systems, 2 Patriot battalions. Military calculations said that they will intercept you, meaning there is no coming back. But even so, they volunteered to carry out this mission. In such missions that are supposed to be carried out deep in enemy territory, it seems there should be a top-cover aircraft accompanying them. At least on the return journey, a top-cover aircraft should help them to protect them from the precision of the enemy planes that are pursuing them. The Su-24 aircraft doesn't really carry much in terms of air-to-air missiles. At most, I think it can carry the R-60, which is a short-range infrared missile. It can't carry very powerful air-to-air missiles. So, it seems one of the issues is that they should have had top-cover aircraft, or at least an electronic warfare plane, to disrupt the complex defensive layers designed to protect the Udeid base to some extent, jam the opponent's radar systems, or perhaps this operation should have been simultaneous with another operation against the enemy's radars, or maybe a few minutes or hours earlier, a missile or drone strike could have been launched against the base. They would have been occupied, and then they could have conducted the bombing and returned. But regardless, it was a very courageous operation. However, this flaw is a fundamental one. Now, I don't know if a simultaneous missile or drone operation was conducted against that base or not, but at the very least, they should have had another aircraft with them, and the fact that they didn't is a flaw in itself. Perhaps it wasn't possible. After all, we know the state of the Air Force, but the fact that they went and bombed this base, successfully reaching their target and bombing it, is truly a great achievement. The second point is, if we have actually mounted cruise missiles on these aircraft or have guided bombs produced domestically, such as the Yasin series, then why didn't they use these bombs so that the pilot could at least hit the target from a longer distance and return? At least without entering the opponent's defensive ring. Why didn't we use these weapons? Who are we really saving these weapons for? This is the second question that needs an answer. But overall, when we look at this event, whether it's this operation these dear ones carried out, the operation the Noja base in Hamadan conducted against Kurdish positions in the west of the country, or the operation the Vadati base in Dezful carried out against the Americans in Kuwait, collectively, it can be said that it was a very good experience for the Air Force. The Air Force hadn't conducted any significant or substantial cross-border operations against a foreign enemy since the Sacred Defense era. Sure, there were some limited operations, like the bombing of ISIS in Iraq, but operations of this type, going into the heart of danger and coming back, hadn't been done until now, and undoubtedly the pilots of these flights who returned safely, or even the planners of these operations, have surely gained very valuable experience. Now consider this. These pilots managed to carry out successful operations in such old aircraft that haven't been updated or had their systems upgraded, merely maintained in their existing state, kept airworthy through overhaul and training, whether they returned or sacrificed their lives. If these pilots had access to modern, upgraded aircraft, or even if we don't say modern, just an Air Force 20 or 30 years ahead of our current one with better planes, what could they have achieved then?
With 60-year-old planes and young pilots from the post-revolutionary generation, this mission was carried out excellently.
What impact would their operations have had on the enemy then? This shows the importance of air power. Look, at the very least, an aircraft can carry several times more ammunition than a missile and inflict much more extensive damage on the adversary in a single sortie. A missile goes and destroys one hangar. It destroys 1 or 2 hangars, but an aircraft can go, destroy a much larger number of enemy assets, and return. What we see from the other side is that they are inflicting much greater damage on us by relying on their air power and superior air capability. In any case, the exact dimensions, planning, and execution of this operation have not yet been fully clarified. And they haven't been disclosed either. Most of what is being discussed are speculations about the fine details of this operation, but what is certain is, first, that the pilots performed this task with great courage. Second, the adversary's air defense systems remain vulnerable to low-altitude flights, and if this pattern is followed in other operations, it is very effective, even in the drone domain. Third, it was proven that air operations can inflict much greater damage on the enemy. Right now, there is speculation that the IRGC's Su-22s used Arman ballistic missiles, which have an 85-kilometer range from a ground launch, and would certainly have a longer range when air-launched. They went and conducted operations with these, but we don't have the facts yet to confirm or deny it. So, this shows that if air power is strengthened, it will have a significant impact on the war. Both in terms of offense and defense. Plus, now that our relations with Russia are somewhat good, and perhaps these Ukrainian attacks have brought us closer to greater convergence, at least go and upgrade these Russian planes we have in our fleet. Regarding these Su-24s you have, some were destroyed at the Shiraz base, but whatever number remains intact, at least go and give them an upgrade. The Russians themselves are using these aircraft, and they have upgraded them. Since you aren't buying new planes, at least upgrade these. Make it possible to mount better weapons, have better avionics, stronger electronic warfare, and perform better operations. After all, our enemies in this region aren't just America and Israel. Perhaps tomorrow you'll need to go and bomb some terrorist groups or hit their headquarters. Everything doesn't just fit into the realm of missiles and drones. In some places, there is a need to strengthen this air power, and now is a great time to take advantage of this opportunity. In any case, the operation that was carried out and the experience transferred to the Islamic Republic's army showed that the new leadership team in the Air Force has much higher courage and risk-taking capacity. All of this brought us some very good achievements. Ultimately, you carried out 3 cross-border missions, and only one of your aircraft was hit in one of them. The other 2 returned and landed safely, which is truly a great achievement for such an air force, and the valor of the pilots who risked their lives to carry out such a massive operation is worth its weight in gold.